13. The Magic Easter Egg. There was once a chocolate shop in Fairyland, kept by old Mother Bottle. It was a most exciting shop. It had great big bottles full of sweets of all colours, wonderful boxes of chocolates, and candy wrapped up in colourful paper. But it was at Easter time that the shop was most colourful of all. For then Mother Bottle had so many Easter eggs, she didn't know what to do. And such glorious ones there were. Chocolate ones, marzipan ones, ones that broke themselves in half when you said, "Open egg," and showed you a surprise inside. Perhaps a toy or a brooch. You can guess how all the fairies loved her shop. One Easter, her shop was more full of eggs than ever before, and all day fairies, brownies, gnomes, and pixies looked longingly in at the window. They looked especially at one great big egg tied up with gold ribbon right in the very middle of the window. It was a magic egg, and very expensive indeed. Now Ole, the gnome, longed to buy that egg, so he counted out his gold, and he found he had 20 pieces. He tied them up in a bag and sat down to think. "I don't believe that egg's more than 20 pieces of gold," he said, "but perhaps Mother Bottle wouldn't let me have it for that. The best thing to do would be to go into her shop when she is having lunch, leave the money on the counter, and take the egg." So you can see by that he was not a very nice gnome. He ran off to the shop. It was just lunchtime. He peeped inside. No one was there. Mother Bottle was having a lunch. Quickly Ole slipped inside, put his money bag on the counter, caught up the magic egg, and ran. The egg was very heavy, for it was half as big as Ole himself. He panted and puffed all the way home, and when he got there he put the egg down on his table and looked at it proudly. "I'll untie the ribbon and say, 'Open egg,'" he said, "and see what happens. I might find all sorts of wonderful things inside." He untied the gold ribbon. "Open egg," he cried in a loud voice. Instantly the egg flew open, and out jumped a little imp. Ole looked just as scared as he could be. He never thought of anything like that at all. "What can I do for you?" asked the imp, grinning. "I am your servant." "Dear me, is that so?" said Ole, beginning to feel better. Well, let me see. You can sweep my bedroom for me." The imp took a broom, leapt upstairs, and began sweeping. Ole heard him. Swish, swish, swish. "Well, that's very nice," said Ole. "Now I've got a servant who will do all my work." He settled himself in a cosy chair and began to read. Swish, 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 went the broom upstairs. Swish, swish. "He's doing it very thoroughly," said Ole after a time. "I'd better go and see if he's finished." He ran upstairs, but oh my goodness! That imp had swept the bedroom nearly bare. He had swept up the chairs and pictures, stools and books, and now he was beginning to sweep them out of the window. "Stop!" cried Ole. "Stop! Whatever are you doing?" "I can't stop working until you say the proper words," said the imp, sweeping a chair out of the window. "I'm magic." Well, Ole tried all the words he knew, but nothing he could think of stopped that imp. "Perhaps you'd better tell me to do some other sort of work," said the imp at last, when he had swept nearly everything out of the window or down the stairs. "I can do any work you like, you know." Dear, I wish I'd known that before," said Ole. "Go into the garden and wash all my dusters then." At once the imp ran downstairs, took a tub and water, and began to wash Ole's dirty dusters, while the gnome tried to put his bedroom straight. Suddenly he heard shouts of laughter coming from the road outside, and looking out of the window he saw a crowd of fairies and pixies leaning over his garden wall laughing. It must be something that imp was doing. Ole rushed downstairs and out into the garden. That imp had washed all the dusters and pegged them on the line, but he couldn't stop washing till he was told to do something else. So what do you think he had done? He rushed indoors and fetched the tables and chairs and washed those. Then he hung them on the line, and you can't think how silly they all looked. It was no wonder everyone was laughing. He was just going to peg up a lot of saucepans when Ole rushed out. Stop, he cried. "I can't," said the imp, grinning. "I'm magic. Think of something else for me to do." Well, would you believe it? Ol couldn't think of a single thing to tell the imp to do next. He just stood there, trying his hardest to think of something. And then a dreadful thing happened. The imp thought he would wash Ol next, and so he suddenly grabbed hold of him, put him in the tub, and soaped him all over. Splutter, splutter, splutter went Ol, with soap in his mouth, eyes, and nose. Splish, splash! Help! Help! Fetch Mother Bottle! He shouted. One of the watching fairies flew off, laughing, to fetch Mother Bottle. Poor Ol had the water squeezed out of him, and then the wicked imp began to peg him on the line to dry. And that's when Mother Bottle found him when she came hurrying down the road. She laughed till the tears ran down her cheeks to see Ol among the chairs and saucepans. I took your magic egg, wept Ol, but I'm sorry. Tell your imp to stop. I don't know how to make him. Easy enough, said Mother Bottle. Go back to your egg, she said to the imp. Bang, clap, he was gone. And through the open door Ol saw the split egg close together again. Mother Bottle unpegged him from the line. Well, you've been well punished for your dishonesty, Ol, she said. You can have your gold back, unless you want to keep the egg. Do you? No, 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 cried Ol. Take the magic egg away. That imp has turned my house upside down and made everyone laugh at me. Take the egg away. So Mother Bottle took the egg home and left Ol to make his house tidy again. The egg was never seen in the window any more, and what happened to it nobody knows. But people do say it will turn up again one day. I'm sure I don't want it though. Do you? 14. The Clock in the Wood. Once upon a time, 3 children went out to have a picnic. They were Bob, Molly, and Eileen. They had a basket full of nice things to eat and a ball to play with. They waved goodbye to their mother and set off to Bluebell Wood. Please start back at 5 o'clock, she called to them. Uncle Jim will be here then, and he will want to see you. Yes, Mother, called back the children. We've got our watches. They soon came to Bluebell Wood. It was a lovely place. There were still some bluebells shining here and there like pools of blue water. The birds were singing in the trees, and the sunshine slanted through the green branches and made freckles of light on the grass below. Let's play hide and seek, said Bob. We'll put the basket of tea things under this tree while we play. I'll hide my eyes first. When the others called cuckoo, Bob ran to find them. He found Molly, but as he ran after her, he caught his foot in the tree root and over he went. He didn't hurt himself, but oh dear, he broke the glass of his watch. Look, he said, my watch is broken. Isn't it a pity? Is yours all right, Molly? We must know the time to go home. Yes, mine's all right, said Molly. Never mind, Bob. We'll soon get yours mended. What's the time, Molly? Asked Eileen. Is it time for tea yet? It's 4 o'clock, said Molly. Yes, we'd better have tea. So they fetched the basket and handed out the good things. Tomato, sandwiches, chocolate, cake, and an apple each to eat. What a fine tea. There was nothing left at all except 3 paper bags and the milk bottle and cup when the children had finished. Let's have a game of catch now, said Bob. So they began. It was great fun, and they played for a long time. Then Bob wondered what the time was. He didn't want to miss seeing Uncle Jim. He looked at his watch. Oh dear, it was broken. He had forgotten that, so he called to Molly. Molly, what's the time? Molly looked at her watch. 4 o'clock, she cried. But it can't be, said Bob, surprised. You said it was 4 o'clock just before we had tea. Look again. Molly looked, and then she held her watch up to her ear. Oh, she cried in dismay. It's stopped. Now what shall we do? Eileen hasn't a watch. We can't tell the time. I can, said Eileen suddenly. She ran to where a big dandelion plant grew and picked a big fluffy dandelion clock. She blew it hard. Puff. She blew again. Puff. Still there was some white fluff left. She blew again. Puff. That was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, puff. 4 o'clock, puff. 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock, cried Eileen. I've puffed all the fluff off. The dandelion clock says it's 5 o'clock. Time to go home. Come on then, cried the others, and off they all went. Mother was so pleased to see them in such good time, for Uncle Jim had just come. It wasn't our watches that told us the right time, said Eileen. It was the little clock in the wood. Uncle Jim. Okay. Sorry. 15. The Big Juicy Carrot. One fine morning, Bobtail the rabbit met Longears the hare, and they set off together, talking about this and that. They stopped by a hedge and lay quiet, for they could hear a cart passing. Bobtail peeped through and saw that it was a farm cart, laden with carrots and turnips. How his mouth watered. Oh. And then, just as the cart passed where the two animals were crouching, a wheel ran over a great stone, and the jerk made a big, juicy red carrot fall from the cart to the ground. The hare and the rabbit looked at it in great delight. When the cart had gone out of sight, the two of them hurried into the lane. Bobtail picked up the carrot. Longears spoke eagerly. We both saw it at once. We must share it. Certainly, said Bobtail. I will break it in half. So he broke the carrot in half, but although each piece measured the same, one bit was the thick top part of the carrot, and the other was the thin bottom part. Bobtail picked up the top part, but Longears stopped him. One piece is bigger than the other, he said. There is no reason why you should have the bigger piece, cousin. And no reason why you should, either, said the rabbit crossly. Give it to me, squealed the hare. Certainly not, said the rabbit. They each glared at the other, but neither dared to do any more. We had better ask someone to judge between us, said the hare at last. Whom shall we ask? Bobtail looked all around, but he could see no one but Neddy the donkey, peering over the hedge at them. There isn't anyone in sight except stupid old Neddy, he said. It's not much good asking him. He has no brains to speak of. That's true, said Longears. He's an old stupid, everyone knows that. But who else is there to ask? No one, said Bobtail. Well, come on, let's take the carrot to the donkey and ask him to choose which of us shall have the larger piece. So they ran through the hole in the hedge and went up to Neddy. He had heard every word they said, and was not pleased to be thought so stupid. The two creatures told him what they wanted. If I am so stupid as you think, I wonder why you want me to judge, said Neddy, blinking at them. Well, you will have to do, said the rabbit. Now tell us, how are we to know which of us shall have the bigger piece? I can soon put that right for you, even with my poor brain, said Neddy. He took the larger piece in his mouth and bit off the end. Perhaps that will have made them the same size, he said, crunching up the juicy bit of carrot he had bitten off. But no, he had bitten off such a big piece that now the piece that had been the larger one was smaller than the other. Soon put that right, said Neddy. Soon put that right, said Neddy, and he picked up the second piece. He bit a large piece off that one and then dropped it, but now it was much smaller than the first piece. The hare and the rabbit watched in alarm. This was dreadful. Stop, Neddy, said Longears. Give us what is left. You have no right to crunch up our carrot. Well, I am only trying to help you, said Neddy, indignantly. Wait a moment. Perhaps this time I'll make the pieces equal. He took another bite at a piece of carrot. Oh dear, such a big bite this time. The two animals were in despair. Give us the rest, they begged. Do not eat any more. Well, said Neddy, looking at the last two juicy pieces and keeping his foot on them so that the two animals could not get them. What about my payment for troubling to settle your quarrel? What will you give me for that? Nothing at all, cried Longears. What? Nothing at all? Said Neddy in anger. Very well then, I shall take my own payment. And with that he put his head down and took up the rest of the carrot. Chomp, chomp, chomp. He crunched it all up with great enjoyment. Thanks, he said to Longears and Bobtail. That was very nice. I'm obliged to you. He cantered away to the other side of the field, and as he went, he brayed loudly with laughter. The two big-eyed creatures looked at one another. Bobtail, said Longears, do you think that donkey was as stupid as we thought he was? No, I don't, groaned Bobtail. He was much cleverer than we were. And you know, Longears, if one of us had been sensible, we would both now be nibbling carrot, instead of seeing that stupid donkey chewing it all up. They ran off, Bobtail to his hole, and Longears to the field where he had his home. As for Neddy, he put his head over the wall and told his friend, the brown horse, all about that big juicy carrot. You should have heard them laugh. 16. The Strange Little Needles. Katy was sitting on the floor with Roger. They had the rag bag between them and were pulling out all their bits and pieces. It was great fun. What are you looking for? Asked their mother. Well, I want a piece of silk to make Angeline, my doll, a new dress, said Katy, and Roger wants a piece of blue velvet to make her a new coat. Her old coat is almost in rags. Here's a fine piece of silk for Angeline's dress, said Mother, picking up a piece of red silk. And here's just the thing for a coat, a beautiful piece of blue velvet. It was a bit that was left from your last year's party dress, Katy. The children were pleased. Katy cut the red silk into 2 halves to make a dress, and then she did her best to cut out Angeline's coat. They threaded their needles and began, but oh, it was difficult to sew the pieces together. Roger pricked his finger once and made it bleed. Katy's stitches were too big, but when she tried to do little ones, the red silk slipped about. Oh dear, said Katy, sewing is very difficult. I wish my finger would stop bleeding, said Roger, sucking it. It's making such a mess of the blue velvet. Oh, I've pricked my thumb now, cried poor Katy. So she had. She sat sucking her thumb, and Roger sucked his finger. I'm tired of sewing. Wait, that looked very funny. Let's go out for a walk, said Katy, as the sun shone into the room. I'm tired of sewing. So out they went, walking in the early spring sunshine, looking for primroses in the wood, and it was whilst they were hunting for primroses that they suddenly saw the funny old woman. She was very small, only as tall as Katy, who was 8. She had a face like a little red apple, and her eyes were as blue as Angeline's. When the 2 children saw her, she was kneeling down on the ground, hunting for something in the thick grass. Hello, said Katy, stopping. What are you looking for? Can we help you? Good morning, said the apple-faced woman. Yes, do help me, please. I was taking a packet of yellow needles to Dame So-So, and I've dropped them all. It is so very difficult to find them in the grass. We'll soon find them for you, said Katy, and she and Roger kneeled down to pick up the strange little needles. They were all bright yellow and were very sharp indeed. The funny thing was that they were sharp at both ends and were very difficult to pick up. The children soon pricked their fingers with them. If only I knew a little magic to get the needles together, said the little woman. But I don't. Well, said Roger suddenly, his face going red with excitement, I've got something of magic enough to get those needles out of the grass altogether without us hunting like this for them. Oh, what, Roger? Cried Katy, surprised. Roger put his hand into his pocket and brought out his new magnet. You know what a magnet is, don't you? It is an odd thing shaped like a horseshoe, usually painted red at the top. It has strange powers, and Roger thought they were magic. Now, he said, watch the magic that my magnet can do. He put it down into the grass, holding it by the red middle, and at once all those little steel needles rushed to the magnet and clung to it. Yes, they really did. Not one hid itself in the grass any longer. Roger lifted his magnet and showed the others all the needles clinging tightly to the 2 ends. There you are, he said. What about my magic? Isn't it wonderful? It is marvellous, said the old woman, looking as if she couldn't believe it. Simply marvellous. What powerful magic you have. Count the needles and see if they are all there, said Katy. So the apple-faced woman counted each one. Yes, there were exactly 50, the right number. She put them carefully into a bag. Thank you very much, she said. I suppose you wouldn't give me that magic magnet, would you? I would so like to have it, to pick up all the needles I've lost about my house. Yes, you can have it, said Roger generously. He gave it to the old woman, and she was pleased as could be. I haven't much to give you in return, she said, but if you like I could spare one of these needles. They are all magic, you know. You have only to stick one into anything you want sewn together and say, needle sew, and it will sew beautifully and make anything you want. Oh, said Katy in delight, that's just what we'd like. We're trying hard to make clothes for Angeline, but we do prick our fingers so. Well, here you are, said the old woman, and she took a small yellow needle from her bag. Now goodbye, I must hurry. Thank you so much for your magnet. She ran off, and Katy and Roger hurried home at top speed to try their magic needle. Wouldn't it be fun for them to say, needle sew, and have all their toys' clothes made in a trice? As for Roger's magic, you can try it yourself if you want to. Buy a little magnet and see it pick up all the needles on the table. You will be most surprised. 17. The Big Box of Chocolates. Peter Penny had been very good to old Dame Twinkle when she had hurt her foot and couldn't go out to do her shopping. He had run her errands every morning for a week. and she was very grateful. "I want to give you a present, Peter Penny," she said. "I wonder what you'd like. You have been very good to me." "I don't want anything, thank you," said Peter Penny, who had been very well brought up and knew that it was wrong to expect presents for kindness. "Well, I'm going to give you something," said Dame Twinkle, who had also been well brought up, and knew that she must certainly show Peter Penny how pleased she was with his kindness to her. "How would you like that big box of chocolate animals that is in Mrs. Peppermint's sweet shop?" "Ooh," said Peter Penny, his eyes opening wide. The big box of chocolate animals were perfectly lovely. All the little folk of the village had gone to look at it and had longed to have it. If Peter Penny had it, he could give a party and his friends could all share the animals. It would be really lovely. Dame Twinkle saw Peter's eyes shining brightly, so she at once went to Mrs. Peppermint's shop and bought the box of chocolate animals. Then she gave it to Peter Penny with her love. He had a large net bag with him, because he had to do his shopping that morning, so he thanked Dame Twinkle very much indeed, and put the box into his bag. Then off he went to do his shopping. He bought bacon and sausages, a pound of rice, a tin of cocoa, some flowers, and a new saucepan. Everything was squashed into his big net bag, and soon it felt very heavy. Peter Penny went home through the magic wood. When he was halfway through, something dreadful happened. The bottom of his net bag broke into a hole, and out fell the big box of chocolate animals onto the soft grass. Peter Penny was swinging the bag as he went and singing a very loud and merry song, so he didn't know what had happened. The saucepan in the bag stopped anything else from falling out. Peter Penny went happily on, not knowing at all that he had lost his precious box of chocolates. Now, not very far behind him came Mrs. Twitter, who sold yellow canaries in her little shop. Always when she came through the magic wood, she wished a wish, because sometimes wishes came true there, and today she wished her wish. "I do wish I could find a nice present lying on the ground all waiting for me," she wished. And dear me, the very next moment, what should she see on the ground but the big box of chocolate animals that Peter Penny had dropped. She gave a squeal of surprise and rushed at it in delight. But when she saw what it was, her eyes filled with tears. "Chocolate," she said. "Oh dear, what a pity. Chocolate always makes me feel so sick. Whoever would have thought I'd find a box of chocolates when my wish came true?" She picked up the box and carried it off. As she went, she wondered what to do with it. "I know," she thought. "I'll give it to old Mr. Ho-Ho. He's been ill in bed for a long time now, and I'm sure he would love to have a nice box of chocolate animals." So she went to Mr. Ho-Ho's and left the box with the little maid, who at once took it to Mr. Ho-Ho. He opened the box, and dear me, how his face fell when he saw what was inside. "Chocolates," he groaned. "Would you believe it? Just what the doctor said I wasn't to have. What very bad luck. Oh, bother, bother, bother." He lay and looked at them. Then he thought that it would be a very good idea to send the box to little Silvertip, the elf across the way. It was her birthday, and he would like to send her something. He knew she was very fond of chocolates. So he sent his little maid with a big box across the way, and she knocked at the door. "A present from Mr. Ho-Ho," she said when Silvertip opened the door. The little elf screamed with delight and ran indoors with it. But dear me, when she saw what it was, she sighed and sighed. "Look," she said to her elfin husband, "another box of chocolates. That makes the 15th I've had today for my birthday. Whatever shall I do?" "Well, if you don't want it, don't waste it," said her husband. "Let me take it to Mother Hooky for her little boy. He'll love all these chocolate animals." "But he's such a very, very naughty little boy," said Silvertip, who didn't like the small boy at all. "Never mind," said her husband. "Naughty or good, he'll like chocolates." So off he went and gave the box to Mother Hooky for Hoppy, her small brownie son. She was pleased, but what a pity! When Hoppy came home from school, he was so rude and naughty that she really could not give him the chocolates. She sent him straight to bed instead. She sat and looked at the box. "What shall I do with them?" she wondered. "I can't eat chocolates myself, and if I leave them in the cupboard, that naughty little boy will steal them. I know, I'll give them to that nice little Peter Penny. He has been so good to old Dame Twinkle lately, running all her errands for her, and I know he likes chocolates." So she went to Peter Penny's house. Nobody was in. There was no light anywhere, so Mother Hooky opened the kitchen window and popped the box on the table just inside. She smiled to herself and thought, I won't tell Peter Penny about what I've done. He can just find them and wonder where they came from. Now, when Peter Penny got home that morning, he had emptied his net bag on the table and looked for the box of chocolates at once. He thought he would like to eat one of the chocolate bears. They did look so very nice. But to his great disappointment and horror, there was no box there. It was gone. Then he saw the big hole in the bottom of the bag, and he had guessed what had happened. How upset he was. What bad luck, he said to himself, to lose that wonderful box of chocolates, the best one I've ever had in all my life. Oh dear, I suppose I must go all the way back through the wood to see where I've dropped it. Poor Peter Penny. He had his dinner, and then off he went to see if he could find his lovely box of chocolates. He looked here, and he looked there. He hunted in the wood, he hunted in the fields, but no matter how hard he looked, there was no box of chocolates to be seen. It was quite gone. Poor Peter Penny was tired and miserable. He couldn't help a few tears squeezing out onto his cheeks as he went home. He was very nearly home when he met Smarty the gnome, who thought himself very clever indeed. "What's the matter, Peter Penny?" asked Smarty, staring at Peter's tears in surprise. "Oh, nothing," said Peter. "Tell me what's the matter," said Smarty, who was always curious to know everybody's business. "Has someone been teasing you?" "Of course not," said Peter crossly. "Do you suppose I'd be so feeble as to cry if somebody teased me?" "Well, what's the matter then?" asked Smarty, simply longing to know. So Peter Penny told him all about how he had been kind to Dame Twinkle, and how she had given him the wonderful box of chocolates, and how he had lost them. "It's the first reward I've ever had for being kind," said Peter sadly, "and now I've lost it." "Oh, that's the way of the world," said Smarty at once. "It doesn't pay to be kind, you know, because you hardly ever get anything back for it, and if you do, you're bound to lose it. No, my boy, you listen to my advice. Don't go bothering to do kind deeds. Just get what you can out of people, and look after yourself. It doesn't pay to be kind and good." "It certainly doesn't seem to," said Peter Penny. "It's very hard to lose that lovely box of chocolates. I shan't bother to be kind to anyone again." He said goodbye to Smarty and went on. He hadn't gone very far when he saw old Mr. Candleshoe, almost bent double under a big load of wood. Now Peter was really a very kind little fellow, and his first thought was to go and help Mr. Candleshoe. Then he stopped himself. "No," he thought, "I won't. Why should I help him? I shan't get anything out of it. As Smarty says, kindness doesn't pay." So he went right past Mr. Candleshoe and didn't even say good afternoon. But no sooner had he passed him than Peter Penny felt bitterly ashamed of himself, and he went as red as the sunset sky. "How horrid of me," he thought. "Am I so mean that I can't give a hand to an old chap like Candleshoe? What do I care if kindness is rewarded or not? I shall be kind because I want to be." So back he went and took Candleshoe's big bundle away from him. He carried it all the way home for him and then turned to go into his own cottage. "You're a kindly fellow," said Candleshoe after him. "A rare kindly fellow you are, Peter Penny. May you get what you most want today." Peter Penny smiled a crooked little smile. "What I most want is that perfectly lovely box of chocolate animals," he thought, "but that's gone for good." Then he stopped in the greatest astonishment, for there, set on the kitchen table, was the very box of chocolates he had lost that morning. There it was, with no note, no message. How did it get there? Where did it come from? What a very extraordinary thing. "Oh," said Peter Penny in delight, picking it up. "Oh, who says kindness isn't rewarded?" He danced around and round the room in joy, and a chocolate bear fell out of the box. Peter Penny picked it up and ate it. It was delicious. "Now to write out the invitations to my chocolate party," cried the little fellow happily. "What fun we shall have!" And when all his friends came to the party, Peter Penny told them about the very mysterious way in which the box of chocolate animals had appeared in his kitchen, and they were really most astonished. "You deserve all the good luck you get," said his friends, hugging him. "I think he does too. Don't you?" 18. The Blown Away Rabbit. There was once a small rabbit who was a very friendly creature. His name was Bobbin, and if you could have seen his white tail bobbing up and down as he ran, you would have thought this name was a very good one. He lived just outside the farmyard, near the pond where the big white ducks lived. He used to play with the yellow ducklings, and they were very fond of him. One day Waggletail, the smallest duck, had a terrible fright. He ran away from the others because he wanted to see if there was a puddle he could swim on all by himself. The pond seemed so crowded when all the white ducks and the yellow ducklings were on it. Well, Waggletail waddled off to where he saw the rain puddle shining. It was a very nice puddle indeed. Waggletail sat on it and did a little swim all round it, quaking in a small duckling voice. The farm cat heard him and left his seat on the wall at once. Young fat ducklings made wonderful dinners for cats, but usually the ducklings kept with the big ducks, and the farm cat was afraid then. A duckling on a puddle by itself, said the big grey cat to himself in joy. He crept round by the wall. He crept round the pigsty. He crouched low and waggled his body ready to jump. And then just the duckling saw him. And just then the duckling saw him. With a terrified quack, he scrambled off the puddle and ran to find his mother. But he went the wrong way, poor little thing. He went under the field gate instead of under the gate that led to the pond. The cat crept after him, his tail swinging from side to side. "Quack, quack, quack," cried the yellow duckling. "Quack, quack, quack." But his mother didn't hear him. Nobody heard him. But wait. Yes, somebody had heard him. It is Bobbin, the little rabbit. Bobbin heard the ducklings quacking and popped his long ears out of his burrow. He saw Waggletail waddling along, and he saw the farm cat after him. "Waggletail, Waggletail, get into my burrow quickly," cried Bobbin. Waggletail heard him and waddled to the burrow. The cat would have caught him before he got there, if Bobbin had leapt out and jumped right over the cat, giving him such a fright that he stopped for just a moment. And in that moment the little duckling was able to run into the rabbit's hole. Down the dark burrow he waddled, quacking loudly, giving all the rabbits there such a surprise. Bobbin leapt into the hole too, and the friends sat side by side, wondering if the cat was still outside. "I daren't go out, I daren't go out," quacked poor Waggletail. "I will go and fetch your big white mother duck," said Bobbin. "I can go out to the pond by the hole that leads there. Stay here for a little while." Bobbin ran down under another hole and up a burrow that led to the bank of the pond. He popped out his furry head and called to Waggletail's mother. "That cat nearly caught Waggletail. He is down my burrow. Please will you come and fetch him?" So the big white duck waddled from the pond and went to fetch her duckling from Bobbin's burrow. She was very grateful indeed to Bobbin for saving her little Waggletail. "Maybe some day I shall be able to do you a good turn too," she said, and off she went, quacking loudly and fiercely at the farm cat, who was now lying in the sun on the wall. Now not long after that, Bobbin wanted to go and see Waggletail, but when he put his nose out of the burrow, he found that it was raining very hard indeed. "You must not go out in that rain," said his mother. "Your nice fur will be soaked. Wait till it stops." But it didn't stop. The rain went on and on and on. Bobbin was very cross. I will borrow an umbrella," he thought. So he went to his great aunt Jemima, and was just going to ask her for an umbrella when he saw that she was fast asleep, with her paws folded in her shawl. But there was the big red and green umbrella standing in the corner. Bobbin knew that no one should borrow things without asking, but he simply couldn't wait until Aunt Jemima woke up. So the little rabbit tiptoed to the corner and took the big old umbrella. He scuttled up the burrow with it, dragging it behind him. He pulled it out of the hole and put it up. My goodness, it was a big one. Bobbin held on to the big crook handle and set off down the hillside. It was a very windy day, and the big purple clouds slid swiftly across the sky. A great gust of wind came, took hold of the umbrella, and blew it up into the sky. And Bobbin went with it. He was such a little rabbit that the wind swept him right off his feet with the umbrella. And there he was, flying along in the sky, holding on to the umbrella. He was dreadfully frightened. He clung to the handle with his two paws, hoping that he wouldn't fall, but feeling quite sure that he would very soon. Poor Bobbin. The wind swept him right over the pond. The ducklings looked up in surprise when they saw the enormous umbrella, but how they stared when they saw poor Bobbin hanging on to it too. It's a rabbit, they cried, and Waggletail knew which rabbit it was. It's Bobbin, my dear friend Bobbin, he said. Mother, look at Bobbin. He will fall. What can we do to save Bobbin? He saved me. We must save him. But how can we? Said the mother duck. Mother, can't you fly after him? Cried Waggletail. I know you don't often fly because you prefer to swim, but couldn't you just try to fly after poor Bobbin? I will try, said the big mother duck. So she spread her big white wings and rose into the air. She flapped her wings and flew after the big umbrella. Bobbin was still holding on, but his paws were getting so tired that he knew he would have to fall very soon. The mother duck flew faster and faster on her great wings. She caught up to the umbrella. She flew under the surprised rabbit and quacked to him, "Sit on my back, sit on my back." Bobbin saw her just below him. He let go of the umbrella handle and fell neatly onto the duck's broad, soft back. Plop! He held on to her feathers. Down to the pond she went, carrying the frightened rabbit. What a welcome the little ducklings gave him. As for Waggletail, he could hardly stop quacking. "You did me a good turn, and now my mother has paid it back," he quacked. "Oh, I'm so glad you're safe." "So am I," said Bobbin. "But oh dear, what about my Aunt Jemima's umbrella? It's gone to the clouds." He came down again that next day and fell into the field where Neddy the donkey lived. Neddy took the handle into his mouth and trotted to Bobbin's burrow with it. "Here you are," he said to Bobbin. "I heard that your Aunt Jemima might punish you for taking her umbrella without asking. I hope she hasn't." "No, she hasn't," said Bobbin joyfully. "Oh, thank you, Neddy. What good friends I have." He ran down to the burrow with the big umbrella, meaning to give it to his great Aunt Jemima, but she was asleep again, with her paws folded in her shawl. So Bobbin quietly stood the umbrella in the corner and ran off to tell Waggletail. "Don't get blown away again, will you, Bobbin?" begged the duckling, and Bobbin promised that he wouldn't. He didn't want any more adventures just then. And that's it. That is it for another episode of Enid Blyton's Springtime Stories. I hope you have very much enjoyed it. Hope you feel relaxed. Hope you feel nice and calm, and hopefully that you fell very deep into sleep. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, this has been Molyneux Does. And remember, if I don't see you before, I will see you the next time I see you. Good night. Good night.